Hey guys, this is Dave Barnes.
And this is Jon McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville. Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome daddy.
On today's episode, we talk with the very, very talented and our good friend Chris Tomlin. Chris Tomlin is a world-famous worship leader, singer-songwriter.
All around
talented, good-looking man.
Yeah. I think this episode is by far like the most we laughed in an episode.
Oh my gosh.
Which was I know Chris pretty well, and Chris is really fun and funny. But it was a wonderful sort of surprise for all of us. We just got to cackling on this,
laughing the entire time.
So strap up, folks. This is a good time, and hopefully, it's a side of Chris that you don't really, because his songs are so wonderful, but tend to be pretty.
He doesn't
serious.
laugh a lot in his recordings
anymore.
So without further ado, enjoy your time in Dadville.
That's what we've got all the words we need.
We do, yeah.
Okay. Chris, I hope you're buckled up for what I'm about to say.
You're probably going to be uncomfortable for just a minute, but
oh, jeez.
I'm sorry. It's your fault. You have literally caused all these things.
Yeah, this is you.
It's your fault that you've done all this stuff. So you have to sit
if you hadn't been
for 4 minutes and listen to all your achievements.
Okay, so here at Dadville, welcome to Dadville. Here we are. We're
ladies and dads.
Yeah, it's just we've added to our population today with Mr. Chris Tomlin, and I'm just going to read this because this is. And in English, too. So here we go.
Your version's in English?
Mine is, yeah. You have a good time.
I'll translate it.
So, okay, here we go. Chris Tomlin is one of the most heralded singer-songwriters in the world who has amassed an impressive body of work. And I would add, has an impressive body. He has sold.
That's never been said. First time it's
here we
ever
are.
been said.
That's what I want this to be.
We'll correct. We'll get on Wikipedia and correct that.
Yeah.
That's worded wrong.
Well, that's not there. He has sold more than 8 million albums, 11.3 million digital tracks with 16 number one singles. Chris is only one of 4 artists to receive the Sound Exchange Digital Radio Award for over 1 billion. That's with a B. Digital
Capital
radio
B.
streams. Others include Justin Timberlake, Pitbull, and Garth Brooks. Not a bad class of people to be with. The Grammy winners.
Can we stop there?
Yes.
Would that tour be awesome?
Oh, right? My gosh.
Could you imagine Timberlake, Garth, Pitbull, and then we all do "How Great Is Our God" at the end.
It feels like, you know what that feels like? That feels like the Earth. Aliens have come, and they're like, "We're gonna destroy the Earth," and the globe comes together and goes, "We need to send an emissary, to teach them what our music is." Right. That is the poor people.
Can I just make just one little note on that little award? I cannot wait for whoever the 5th guy that gets that award.
Oh my gosh!
Because they're gonna be like, I'm in the company of Justin Timberlake, Garth Brooks, Pitbull, not sure who the 4th guy is, and me.
Whatever.
Go ahead.
Whatever. The Grammy winners list of music awards include American Music Award, 3 Billboard Music Awards, 21 Dove Awards. I call that an aviary, by the way. When you get to that many Dove Awards, you've just started an aviary. A BMI Songwriter of the Year Award, and more. Chris's concert tours have sold out venues in major cities, including New York's Madison Square Garden, the Forum in L.A., Nashville's Bridgestone Arena, and Red Rocks in Denver, among others. This spring, which I think is really cool, Chris launched his own imprint label, Boyer & Bow, in partnership with Capital Christian Music Group. This is maybe the most amazing thing about this. He was also pronounced the most sung songwriter in the world in 2013. I mean, why is that not a tattoo?
I feel like we need to have a moment of silence.
I agree.
Can you just say that one more time?
Yeah,
and
I'm going to say it, and then let's just pause.
20 minutes of silence.
Okay. And it's not going to be
21 minutes. One for every double.
Let's don't edit it. Let's have it real time. Can we just have it real time? Okay, I'm going to say it again because he was also pronounced the most sung songwriter in the world. That is not Tennessee. That's not the U.S. That's the Philippines, because that's an easy cheat, isn't it? In 2000, that's insanity.
That is amazing.
How do you feel when you think about that?
I don't even know how to think about that. It's a crazy thing. And what I love to say, what I think about it, what I love to say about it, it speaks to the power. It speaks to the power of the church to me.
Mm.
That's what it speaks to me.
I love that,
because I would be someone that would not be. My name would not be a household name. Like like those other three I mentioned earlier, or someone who he would think would be the largest, have the most songs sung in the world. But I love it that it speaks to the power of the songs of the church and how there's nothing like it on the earth. Pop music only goes so far. Country music only goes so far.
That's a great way to say that.
Country music only goes so far. Hip hop only goes so far. I mean, those have massive reaches. But when you're talking about the songs of the church, there's not a place on the earth where there's not a church. And there's everywhere there's dirt, there's people gathering to worship God, and that my songs have been a part of that in people's lives. I would have never dreamed that. I mean, I come from nothing, small town, Texas. I would have never dreamed that I could be a part of that. But I've always had it from a kid. I've always had a heart to, for some reason, I feel like God wired me that way, is to write songs that people would sing. I remember as a young kid, I'd sing at church. In my church, it was this really small little church, and I would sing and play. And I would always tell my mom when I'd go home, I was like, Mom, that was fun today. I really liked it when people sang. I don't like it when I'm just sitting there and I'm singing and everybody's listening.
Wow.
I liked it. And so looking back, that's weird. I was like, wow, I could see even then God was wiring me that way. It was like I wanted people to sing with me. And so I just started trying to write songs that way that would be real easy for people to sing. And it speaks to the power of God in that too, because I don't think there's not a marketing plan where you set out. No one sets out on a marketing plan and goes, you know what? I think I want to have my song sung the most in the world. That's the marketing plan. Right. And that is just like that. That's an amazing thing that God would do. And so it's always humbling when people say that, and whatever that means. But I love it because it represents the music of faith, the music of the church, the music that is something that is so different, and it goes beyond radio. It goes beyond. It doesn't need radio. It doesn't need a marketing plan. It doesn't need all those things.
As songwriters sitting in the room, like that piques a lot of interest for me, because I'm like, it's pinging all these like bells in my brain. But maybe the most significant one is like when you think about what you do as a writer of these songs that are so prolific and so sung. I mean, when you sit down to write, I mean, how do you do that? Because like, what's the grid that it has to go through for you? Like, do you bring in your family as your test group and like sing back what Daddy just sang?
Ashlyn, can you sing?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what does that look like to do that? Like, how does your brain?
It's a great question, and I think I do have a different grid than a lot of people have. And unapologetic.
Do you mean you've just always had that different grid?
Yes.
Or are you required to have a different grid?
No, I've always had it, and I consider I take a great responsibility that I feel like what my gifting is and what I wanted to do is to really write songs that are accessible to people. And so I've never sat down to think, you know what? I don't care if people like this or not. This is just what I feel, and this is what I'm just getting it out. And that's not me. I really care if this can be sung, if this is something. So it has to go through. It goes through that, and you don't achieve it all the time. But I feel like I have this little, I guess, my finger to the wind, which way the wind's blowing. Of like, I think of the church. I think of the average person. I think of the person who's sitting there and they're going to their jobs every day, and they don't think about music every day. They're not thinking about what melodies and what key it's in and all those kind of things. They're just thinking, when I go to church, maybe I just barely made it there, and I just want something I can sing. What's something I can sing that people who don't think about music all the time, can I give them something that gives them a voice to sing? And so sometimes I think of it like this: is it something that people can sing, and versus is it singable? Is it simple? Is it a melody that anybody can pick up? Is it something that people want to sing? So is it relative to the time? And then is it something that people need to sing? And those are the three things that I think about a lot. For example, when I heard the song, I didn't write it. When I heard the song "Good Good Father," I was like, that's something that people need to sing, and I want to be a mouthpiece for that song, because that's something that's going to really bring healing to a lot of people and those kind of things. So I think about the people, I think about the congregations, I think about the audience, I think about how will this translate to people when I'm writing songs, and that's always in me. And so I scrap so many things because I think, gosh, that doesn't feel very congregational to me. But that's what I love. That's how I'm wired, and that's what I love to do. There's nothing what brings me the greatest joy in life is those moments when I am with the people leading a song and singing a song, and it just connects, and it's like people have no clue I'm on the stage.
Yeah.
And they're just worshiping their hearts out to God. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm most gifted to do. This is when I feel the most alive. It's
And oddly enough, exactly what Pitbull has said in so many.
That was word for word.
When he was here last week, that's exactly.
Yeah,
he's
PB
like,
as we call
I
him.
just think about the people worshiping God.
Well, he didn't say it exactly, but you could get a feel.
I guess now that you put it that way, it was a little bit
That's why he wears sunglasses, because he doesn't want. He's just so like
and emotional.
Yeah.
A lot of tears.
So, I feel the same way. We all feel the same way when we're up on stage and we look out on the crowd and someone is, they got their eyes closed and they're singing your song and your song means something to them. Yeah. It's sort of like that. When you feel like you've been taken out of the equation, it almost is the most gratifying thing.
Yeah.
But in your case, obviously, you have this integral role in people's relationship with the Lord.
That's right.
You're right in there.
Yeah.
Right. So as you're writing those songs, is that something that you have to sort of try to put to the side of your mind? You know what I mean?
For me, it's the analogy has always been the moon. Be the moon, and what I mean by that is that the moon gives no light on its own, but it just reflects the light from the sun, and so that's the place that I feel like it's an odd thing. The stages are weird anyway. Stages create
for sure
weird things.
Yeah.
And it's an odd thing when you're really representing the Lord and faith and Jesus and talking to people about Jesus, but you're on a stage and spotlights are on you and there's smoke machines and there's that creates another dynamic that's a little bit weird, but at the same time it's really what's going on inside of you, and that's where I have to be in the right place. And for me, I've always thought about it that way. It's like, I have no light on my own. I don't get up here and think, if you just follow me, it's going to be good.
Right. Yeah.
If I realize that, if what I can give people might last that night, but if people can connect with the Lord, if they can connect with God's presence and really connect with God and hear his voice, then that changes everything. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and just be a reflection like that. When I say the moon, the sun is the one that gives light,
right.
And the moon just reflects it. And so I feel like that's always been kind of the place of a worship leader anyway.
Yeah.
But even when I'm on tour and I'm on concerts and I'm in these big places, I still feel the same way.
Which the humor to me is this is probably obvious to say, but it's the same with us, hopefully, with you and I, John. It's like, it shouldn't be any different. It's just that yours is kind of this, it has this accountability built in that I think would either be, maybe both, like really hard and really freeing. Where like ours can get tricky because it's kind of like, well, I'm doing that, but it's okay if I grab some.
I
of that
feel
light.
like
You know what I mean?
ours is like, I can take a break from it for a second. You know what I mean? From that headspace a little bit. It's like, well, this one I can be a little self-indulgent right here.
Yeah.
But with yours, it has that built-in accountability, like you said.
It is different. That's why I said when I take songwriting, it's not just something that's fun. I take it as responsibility that God has given me. Okay, so God has given me a gift, and for some reason, a platform that people look to. So I know that when I'm writing songs, that people are looking to that. Is that something I can play in my church? Something that translates to that now, and so I take that responsibility very seriously when I'm thinking about my music.
And I mean, I think one of the things that's so fun through talking about this for people to listen is to hear that, because I think it's easy. It would be easy, I think, for people to go like, "Oh, you just kind of crank out a song and then wow, the world's all singing it." But there's so much into it, so much craft, so much skill, so much instinct, and
and I heard a guy say this once too, and I feel like the great songs have been this. But he said, sometimes I'm a songwriter, sometimes I'm a song receiver, and I was like, oh, I feel that, because I feel like the songs that have just been this, like, what happened, where did that go, has all been kind of like it was just downloaded. I was like, goodness gracious, where did that come from? I could give you.
How can we get that to happen more?
100 stories.
There's some formula for that.
There is none, right?
Yeah.
You so wish.
Probably the bathroom may have something to do with it.
It's true.
That's true. That Old Testament bathroom.
You mentioned something for all the listeners. How many listeners do we have now?
Right now, it's the three of us. If you're counting active listeners.
There was that one episode where you were sitting on your phone and you called Annie.
So that's 4.
That was our highest.
3.5.
Yeah.
We've had a bump.
3.5, yeah. So
We
We call it a podcast, but it's really just a time for the three of us
we're
to
not
get together.
recording. Yeah. That would be.
that's just my screensaver.
That would be. Oh my gosh! You have a screensaver of Pro Tools running. That would be a hysterical, like such a sad thing. As if I was so lonely that I fooled y'all. I fooled everybody into thinking I was recording a podcast, and we would just come over and hang. And hey, dude, when's that coming out? Oh yeah,
It's coming out.
Not quite- we're still working on the website.
Yeah. Or even worse, like I get to meet people I've always admired, and that's the way I do it. They're like, "Why are we at a restaurant? Where are the mics?" I'm getting all this. Trust me. I've got a way I do this, and
It's
it'll
up.
be.
Yeah. It's up there.
It's up here somewhere.
Okay, so let's. I feel like we could go into the music
Yeah.
for another 3 hours, but let's back up a little bit. You grew up in Texas.
Yes.
What was the house like? Mom, dad, siblings, all that. Give us sort of the flyover.
The flyover for the so early days. First thing I remember, I lived in a trailer house. I was the oldest of three boys, and so we lived out behind my grandparents' house. And my dad was a pharmacist, so he just started his first pharmacy job outside of Tyler, Texas. So that was our first house. I can still remember those vivid days. And then we moved to like a house, and I thought, man, this is like we have just
High on the hog.
we have made it, and this is awesome. I look back now, I think that thing was like 800 square feet, 900 square feet, something like that. And then finally moved into the reason I'm saying that is finally moved to our house like when I was 6, 7 years old, the house that my parents still live in today. And I lived my whole life, and they're still there at the same house today. And that's where me and my brothers grew up. The house was just, my three boys, it was just full on. It was sports all the time. Everything was competitive. Everything was fighting. It's just beating each other up every day over something. But my dad, like my mom and dad had a pharmacy. My mom worked at the pharmacy. My dad was one of those quintessential small town pharmacies where you got the pharmacy going on, and he had a little guitar shop in the corner that sold guitars.
Wait.
No way.
Wait. In the
The
pharmacy?
In the pharmacy
guitar shop.
Yeah, this is not Walgreens. Walgreens, CVS, this stuff did not exist. Okay, and so he had a little guitar shop in the corner, and then he had a baseball card shop in the other corner. So
Oh my gosh. This is amazing. This is heaven.
it's
Like literally this.
Right.
Did you ever leave?
So I worked at the pharmacy, and we had a Pinto, Ford Pinto. They don't make these anymore, and that was the delivery car. And so I was that's what I did. I had two jobs. I mowed yards. I had a lawn. I had about 20 yards.
Jeez.
And then I did deliveries for my dad. And so basically, it was funny because that doesn't really exist. People aren't delivering. I was a drug dealer. I delivered drugs. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And so people don't deliver drugs anymore, but I was delivering drugs.
Do you say that on stage? Like,
Yes,
look,
yeah.
guys,
Oh my
this is the
God.
power of the gospel. I used to be a drug dealer.
Oh my gosh.
I used to push
Yeah,
drugs all around Tyler,
town.
Texas.
Ford Pinto. I was in a Ford Pinto, and it had I remember it would have the decal. My dad's thing was called Professional Pharmacy, and it had the decal in our phone number on the side. It was always so embarrassing because my dad would drop me off at school in that thing, and
with the decal.
it had the big decal, and my dad knew it was embarrassing, and he would get a running start into school and pull the little emergency brake and slide in.
No.
Yes. And my friends are there, and I'd get out the Pinto, like, hey guys, and
Was the decal like, did it have like a pill and then like a guitar and then like a baseball guy?
Was it Ken Griffey holding like a Taylor guitar? Like,
But no, isn't that amazing though? So my dad had these things going. He put the guitar in my hand when I was a kid. I had mono when I was one summer.
Wow.
Then baseball was everything for me, and playing baseball. And they're like, I was in fourth. I was 9 years old. I got mono, and that was a weird thing because they call it the kissing disease, right? And when I was 9 years
we
old.
need to talk about that. What's
I was
the
like,
history
9 years.
there?
And exactly.
What were you doing dropping off the drugs?
He
there?
was. Everybody knew him around. town.
You know what the payment for this is a kiss.
9
You're a
years
little
old.
short on your payment,
Not-
Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my god.
So 9 years old, I'm in the. I get mono. My dad's like, you're driving your parents not crazy. You're driving your mama not crazy. It's all summer. Do you want to learn to play the guitar or the fiddle? And he said, I'm going out back, and when I come back, just let me know. It was just exactly like that. And I'm sitting at home. I'm probably watching the Dukes of Hazzard or something like that.
There you are.
And he come in, and I said, Dad. He said, so what it'll be, guitar or fiddle? And I was like, I said guitar. And he goes, okay, I'll start tomorrow. And he would just draw out the notes, the strings, and he would draw out the notes, and I would that's what I do. I sit all day and grab one of his guitars. And my dad loved country music. It was all about the Outlaws. All he cared about in life was
really
Willie, Waylon, and Merle Haggard.
Yeah.
Those three was it for him.
Yeah.
And so my first song, I was a little kid, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain and Silver Wings were my two first songs. And that was my fourth grade talent show. So music was a part of my life. And then sports was a big part of my life. I loved basketball, baseball, tennis. I loved playing that. And having two younger brothers, we were all really close in age, so everything was competitive, like I said. And they were both better athletes than me. They were better at everything than me, even though I was the older brother. So it was a fun house. It was a great childhood. I mean, being in a small town, my friends that I grew up with, we literally grew up together the whole way, and so we were the same friends unit from kindergarten through seniors. And you're talking, not talking many people. And so that was a real special thing because everybody's so close. The town I grew up in is called Grand Saline, and it's outside of Tyler, and it's famous for the Morton salt mines. Have you ever seen the little girl where it says "Where it rains, it pours"? The little yellow. Yeah. That's the Morton salt mine. It comes from my town, and so everybody's salt miners. So I'm just setting the picture. All the cars are rusted out. You have to have these old cars because the salt rusts them all out.
Isn't that amazing?
And
I think that is so fascinating.
And so that was kind of where that's the town I grew up in.
Yeah,
this little town.
So what was your dad's? Was it just a love for country music that made him, devote like half his store to guitars, or was he a musician?
He loved music.
Up?
He loved music, and he loved country music, like I said, and he loved it. He loved the music of the church too. I grew up in the church from early on, but. Yeah, he loved playing guitar. They had a little band that they would play the Salt Festival every year.
My gosh!
They had one gig a year. It was the Salt Festival, and the Salt Festival was a big deal, man. It was a big deal. And
did you feel a sense of kind of honor, like my dad plays?
Oh, I remember. I can remember going to when they would rehearse for the Salt Festival.
Oh my gosh!
And I would sit in the corner, and I was like, "Gosh!" And they're playing all these country songs, and I'm just like, "It's Alabama and." Willie and all these songs. I was like, I just thought my dad's the coolest thing ever. He's playing guitar in this country band. And so, he loved it. And he thankfully put the guitar in my hand. And he loved selling guitars. And it was always these little, it's always like a Takamine and in the Takamine knockoffs and everything.
Which sounds like a great band. Chris Tomlin and the Takamine knockoffs. Listen, if you need a bad drummer, you know who to call.
So it was guitars and strings. He had all the strings and guitars and.
I mean, did he do enough business at it?
Yeah, I mean,
because he was kind of the only game.
He was the only game in town, and I mean, he'd sell 2 or 3, and you'd be fine because I mean. Wasn't like he didn't have a lot of overhead. He only had about 5 up there, and so he sell 2 or 3 of these. It'd be amazing.
Much. Yeah. So this was fascinating to me. I read where you wrote your first worship song at 14.
Yeah.
So you've watched your dad. You see how music works. Yeah. Are you writing songs before then, or was that was your first foray in doing worship songs?
Yeah. No, I was playing. I had a band. My first band was. I think we wanted to be Striper. Do you remember Striper?
Oh my God!
Can we talk about Christian heavy metal? Christian heavy metal.
Heavenly metal.
We wanted to be that.
Yeah.
And but when none of us could hit, you're gonna love this. Let me tell you that. Let me set the scene. None of us could hit the notes, so we had a girl who sang in the East Texas Opry. She sang country, but she could sing that high.
Yeah.
So she was our lead singer.
Oh my gosh!
And
but in the keys, so y'all would do the real keys. They were that high.
They were. I mean,
even as kids,
I couldn't hit them, and so I was a guitar player. I had a red Ibanez. Tell me about it. The red Ibanez electric guitar. Picture this: keyboard player. No, we didn't have a bass, but the keyboard player. We were kind of like White Stripes before they even knew that.
So he did bass.
So he didn't really have a bass, but he was a keyboard player because he had a keyboard. And he had 2 sounds. He had the wind and helicopter sound. And so every song started with
no.
And then somewhere in the song you hear
it's like Miss Saigon.
Oh, and that's exactly.
So we hit that, and then our drummer had a 70-piece drum setup. He had like three kick drums. He had so many toms. He had he had a gong in the back because Striper had a gong.
Oh my gosh!
And so we would play, and so that was my band. We were called the Seventh Seal, Wrath of God.
No.
We had a parentheses, Seventh Seal, parentheses, Wrath of God.
Wrath of God.
Wow, that is an ambitious title.
Intense.
Were y'all heavy?
We were strong, man. No, we were so. I mean, it was helicopter wind, me on an Ibanez, and just a drum solo the whole time, the whole song with the East Texas Opry country singing girl.
Hold on.
Imagine this.
Hold on.
I won't even tell you.
I can't.
I won't even.
I'm trying to picture what that's like.
We would practice in my friend's garage, and I won't even tell you. It's not. It's. I can't even put it because this is a family-friendly show. What his dad would come out and tell us about our music. It was unbelievable.
I just love that the instruments are as follows: drums, guitar,
more drums,
singing, helicopter, and wind. They're like, listen, no, he's not here. We can't do this. We can't do the show. What's going to happen with helicopter and wind?
We don't have helicopter and wind. Every song starts with the helicopter taking off.
That's how we know the tempo of the song.
When you sit with Ed and y'all are working on a song, do you ever have a temptation to be like, gosh, you know what this could use?
Some wind. So that was my band. But yes, I did write a song. I would play at church too, and I did write. Started trying to write songs when I was started in high school. Just trying to write songs that people could sing. Most of the songs I was doing was other people's songs, but I would just try to write my own too, and they were awful.
So you said earlier that you were up. You would get up at church and be playing. And you liked it when people were singing. So were you doing special music and stuff like that?
Yeah, that would get special.
So you were kind of that guy.
Yeah, already. I was the only kid that could play. I mean, that was the forcing function. You know, it's like, okay, he can play.
He's got the red eye.
Yeah, it was that simple.
He can play.
He's got the red eye.
Get up there.
Listen, don't you dare bring that electric guitar to church.
No.
Don't you
no
dare.
way. No way.
Now, how big was the church that you go in?
Oh, gosh. It was a couple hundred people.
Okay, yeah.
Which was massive for our town. It was the largest church in town. We had a youth group of like 30 people.
That's big.
Massive.
Yeah.
And so... Yeah, our town was 2,000 people total, so 10% of the town. But I would always get up and play a song, and so I started realizing, gosh, that's when I started realizing I like playing songs that people know, and when it would just cause them to sing.
Maybe not the ones that your band was doing that they didn't know.
You're like,
maybe that was a juxtaposition.
Why are they not connecting? Why are they not connecting with this band? This band is
turn the
amazing.
helicopter up. Turn it up. We need.
Is it in the mains?
I look back, man. I look back and think, what kind of patience and endurance
did
my parents, my
Amen.
friends, my family? Because now I see what that must have been like. What a train wreck! What a horrible sound.
And can I say, as a global comment, for those of us musicians who all grew up with these stories. If ever we get mad at our parents again in a moment, like they do something you think, oh, you're rolling your eyes at your dad, your mom, whatever. I think there should be some little moment of serenity where we go, but you know what? This is the same woman / man who, when I was upstairs, because I grew up playing drums, is that the worst? Just wearing it out, that they were just like washing dishes, like, give them 15 more minutes, like, dude, dude.
Or they're washing dishes and they're like, that's 15 more years.
Oh my gosh! But you know what I mean? Like there is
just like red X's.
You're
on
right,
the calendar.
Chris. Like that is not talked about enough.
Oh,
the patience
totally.
of parents to go. No, like I mean, piano when you're starting and just like.
I look back and I'm so grateful. I mean, I think about the church I grew up in, what I miss, because, the churches, a lot of the churches I'm in now, and they're just so pro, and everything is just
that's really great word.
Everything's like on stun, insane, and
on stun,
and so I think about where I grew up, I wouldn't have a chance. I was awful. There's no way I could be in what churches are today. And I'm so grateful. I had people's because I'm looking back going, God, that must have been horrible. And they're just like, well done, son. Keep it up. You can do this.
You know what?
And man, to have people like that.
Yeah.
To think of the providence of God, literally, for all of our stories, that there were safe places to develop.
Yes.
For all of us. I mean, that was me at college. I went to MTSU and not Belmont. Had I gone to Belmont, I don't know that I'd be doing music. Because to your point, everybody there was on stun. I love that. Yeah. Like everybody there had played their whole life and was the best kid in their usually city at whatever that instrument was, and had taken private lessons since they were negative.
Yes.
Like out of the womb.
Yes.
And if I had been in that environment, I mean, I think that's a really profound thing. Again, just the providence of God that he would go, hey, for you to achieve this goal, this thing I have in your life, you need to be here. And you need to be over here, because if you're not there and you're going up in the wrong situation, like this is the plan I have.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Isn't that crazy?
It's not happening. It makes me like, okay, what are my kids growing up in? It makes me think about that. You know, what are my kids growing up in? Is there places is there safe places where they can really develop? And I want to make sure that happens, you know, where it's not just like, oh gosh, you know, I'm not sure we can have you on stage because that wasn't like perfect.
Right. Oh my God. Could you imagine?
I mean, I would never have a chance. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So, you know, you do college where you start to play more.
Yes.
You get out of college, it starts to ramp up even more.
Yes.
Where you're doing it more and more. The thing that I was curious about sort of in that season is because you were affiliated with ministries and churches.
Yes.
You know, you had jobs at churches doing, you know, the pro worship thing.
Yeah.
What was the transition? Because that's a lot. I mean, that's, you know, we're covering a lot of time there, which is kind of cheating. But what was sort of the transition from going, I'm the guy leading at church to like, I think I want to go out further, or I want to do something different with this and be, you know, like kind of go out into the world on my own and do this. How did that happen?
That's amazing. Gosh, there's so much in that. You know, when I was a junior in college, by the time I went to Texas A&M University, and by the time I was a junior, we had this thing called Breakaway there, which was just really exploding at the time.
It was huge.
And it's still massive. And these were the very early days. And when I was there, and I started having all these opportunities, and people were hearing more of my songs, and but I still didn't feel like I could do this for a career. I was like, it's just fun. I enjoy playing songs and Bible studies, but now churches are calling me everywhere. And I remember on the phone one day, calling back to a friend at home, back in my little town, and we're talking, and he doesn't even remember saying this, but he said, "So what's going on, man? It seems like God's using your songs in an amazing way." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." He said, "What are you gonna do?" It's like, "Oh, I'm still gonna go to try to get into physical therapy school or some kind of sports medicine thing. I'm gonna get grad school, you know." And he said, "Isn't that amazing about us that when we always just have plan B when we don't trust that God is doing something and that we don't trust what God's doing." And he goes, "Hey, to this day, I don't remember saying that." And I was like, "You said that." And I was like, and it was that moment. It's like, that is completely me. I didn't have enough faith or trust to go, I could do this. I could actually go do this. So it was pretty much that phone call almost. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to just try to finish school here and see what happens. And I remember going, and God just started to open up all these doors, these different doors of like opportunities to play. And the crazy things about my story, if I could just back up a little bit, is that the very first time I ever played something, it was at an opportunity at a high school, and it was a little youth crusade. They said, "Would you come play this little youth crusade for a week at this little thing?" And I'm like, "Man, I would love to. I'm just out of high school. These kids are the same my age," and I didn't know to say no. I wasn't smart enough to say no. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then I thought, I don't know enough songs to play for a week. I don't have, like, it's every night, and I knew like 3 or 4 songs. That's it. That's all I knew. Like, that's all I had, the bullets in the gun. You know?
Yeah.
And my good songs, right? And they're like, "We're gonna play for the week." I was like, "Okay." And I get a call right before this, and this guy, really deep voice, like, "Hello, my name is James." I'm like, "Hey, James, how you doing?" He's like, "Yes, I understand that you're playing at this youth crusade." I'm like, "Yes." And I was like, "I am." And he said, "Well, the reason I'm calling you is I've never heard of you, and I am speaking this week at the thing, and I was wondering what kind of music you do. I've never heard of you." And I was like, "Well, James, the reason you've never heard of me is I've never done this before, and secondly, I don't really have any music. I have about 3 or 4 songs." And you could hear the pause.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine the long pause? It's funny. He goes, "Can I send you some music?" He said, "Can I send you some music?" I said, "Yeah." So he sends me this music in the mail, tapes. That'll tell you what year it was. Yeah. And he sends me this music in the mail, and it's like all these new songs I'd never heard, a lot of worship songs. And I looked at the little tape, and it said Choice Ministries, produced by Louis Giglio, and I was like, "That's a funny name," and that's all I thought. And I learned all these songs.
Will we know some of those songs?
Yeah, there was early songs. We're like, "Lord, you are more precious."
Oh, yes.
Mighty is our God. Mighty.
Yeah.
How,
that's amazing.
He is exalted.
Oh,
and I was like, all these early courses.
Yeah.
Lord, I lift me on high. Name it. For me, that was really new.
Okay.
And I was like, at that time, I was like, "Oh, I love these." And I started writing them down, writing the chord. I came, my first thing I ever did, note cards. Only note cards with the lyrics and the chords above them.
Wow.
And because I was scared to death to look at anybody, I didn't memorize the songs. So at night, before the session, I would come and set the note cards in the order on the stage.
Oh, I love that.
And just look at them, and I would literally sing a song, take the mic stand, to the next note card because I set them down the stage, down the side. And can you
practice you still do today.
Can you imagine what that must have looked like? No one can see me right now, but can you imagine like what that must look for the audience? Every song he moves down,
and the lighting guy is like, "Oh my gosh, this guy. What is the deal?"
He slides down. So this is my first. So I'm getting to a point.
You know the other thing too is that people know how many songs you have left.
Yeah. Oh wow, we're just starting. Oh, he's almost done.
He's at 9 o'clock.
He skipped like 5 songs.
I can go to the bathroom.
He looks like he's upset.
So that's the first time I ever led. First time I ever did anything. That's how I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week, this is what I'm getting to. The end of the week, James, he comes to me and he said, "Chris, 2 things." And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "One, you have no idea what you're doing." And I was like, "Wow, thank you very much." I mean, I was like, "Thank you very much."
It's a great talk.
Yeah.
James.
He goes, and secondly, I'll never forget this, man. He said, you have no idea how God's going to use your music in the world.
You're kidding.
I didn't even have any music. I'm using note cards of other people's music, and I'd written maybe a song or 2. He goes,
You're kidding me.
He goes, "You have no idea how God's." He goes, I've been praying for you this week, and God has shown me He's going to use your music all over the world. I'm 18 years old, and I was like, "Well, thank you." And he said, "I remember." And then he put his hand on my head. And we're just standing there, 2 guys. I didn't come from that kind of tradition of the church. He comes, just puts his hand on my head and is staring at me. And he said, "God," and he's looking right at my eyes. And he said, "God, would you make Chris a psalm writer for his generation? Not a songwriter, but a psalm. Would you make him a psalm writer for his generation?" And it was like lightning went through me.
Holy cow.
It was like lightning went through me. And fast forward, now I'm in college, and I get a call, "Hey, would you do this event?" And there's the guy speaking is named Louis Giglio, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, the tapes."
That's the funny name guy.
Yeah, the guy from the tapes. We connect that night, and I'm playing something, and Louis comes to me, and he goes, "Man, who are you, and where are these songs coming from?" Oh, I said, "I've been in college writing these songs," and he goes, "I speak everywhere. I've never heard these songs, and these are really great." He goes, and I remember he said, "I think the whole world's going to sing these songs." I'm like, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Man, wherever I go speak, I'd love for you to go with me and travel." And it became something that was just, I knew this was something that was bigger than I ever could imagine or dream. And the doors kept opening and opening and opening. And at the same time, like you said, I still kept leading in churches and planting churches and being there. But the opportunities kept growing and growing. This thing called Passion started with Louis, and then we started this thing, and it just never dreamed that it would be known for its music. It was supposed to be this conference that was just to gather college students, and we were writing these songs, producing these songs, and then all of a sudden the music started exploding in a grassroots way. There was no radio, there's no marketing, there's none of that, and it was like, then all the record labels started calling, saying, "Who are you guys? This record is bigger than all our records in Christian music, and we don't even know who you guys are. What's going on?" And so that the record label thing started forming just out of really just trying to, again, just writing these worship songs and God just leading the way. It was amazing. And a full circle, James is the guy that with the tapes and the guy who prayed for me and said, "You don't have any idea what you're doing." He is now the senator of Oklahoma, U.S. senator of Oklahoma. He sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. He deals with ISIS all the time. You'll see, if you ever see a guy on TV talking with Wolf Blitzer, and he's this redheaded, kind of looks like Opie guy with a deep voice talking about foreign relations things, and it says Senator James Lankford. That's him. And
No way.
That's the guy that was the guy that was the first thing I ever did. That's the guy who was speaking that week, and he was just this young evangelist traveling around. Yeah, that's kind of how it turned into the platform of that God put me with Passion and all those things was a real platform for those songs to just grow. And for the longest time, I thought I would say it like this: I feel like I'm just chasing my songs around because no one ever
that's a great way to
no one ever put my name with them. They were just songs people sang in the church. And
that is to me that sounds like such a refreshing way to go about it because it's always sort of the opposite.
It is.
Like when you're starting out, you're hanging pictures of yourself in coffee shops
yeah.
and stuff like that, just trying to get some people to come in
to
listen to a song that you wrote.
Right.
But for your actual music from day one to you're already out of the equation. You know?
The songs have always been the star.
Yeah.
They've been
that's so nice.
They've been the songs always, for the longest time, it was years before my name or recognition ever caught up with, that's the guy behind them. It was like these songs were just going out because they were very was like this college group putting stuff out. It was very nameless. But
Now, when you were writing some of that stuff, did you have any? Because I assume that you were writing a lot of that stuff before you had that conversation with your friend, where you started to think, okay, I am going to do this.
yeah.
When you're writing them, are you thinking, this is something here?
No, I didn't have any idea to think that way.
Yeah.
I was doing them at Breakaway there.
What
at
was
Texas
the-
A&M, and that was it.
What was the first song you saw that was like, whoa, what's happening here?
This song called "We Fall Down." I don't know if you remember the
Yes.
song.
Oh, yeah.
We fall down. That was.
You know, it's embarrassing. I didn't know you wrote that. You wrote that?
Yeah. So that was like 1990.
That is amazing.
That was 1995, I guess. Or
And
something.
you just saw.
1994, 95, and that's one that I'd written a lot of songs before that, and they were kind of locally people would sing them, but that was a song that I started getting emails of like, hey, we're in such and such, and we're singing this in Spanish, and we've translated this in Spanish, and it's going way further than I ever thought. This is a simple little song. And that was one of the first ones. That,
So when you would go play it at Breakaway.
Yeah.
Like that was your first real kind of outlet. I hate that word, but
Yeah.
in this context. But
Yeah.
that was how you get up and play it.
yeah, yeah.
And then would you go record them and that's how they would spread?
Breakaway didn't really start making any records for itself till I left. First record they made was the next incarnation of Leaders after I graduated. But I made little camp because I would do youth camps. That's how I kind of made my livelihood. I would do youth camps in summer, and I made little camp CDs, and I would have some of these songs on there. But where We Fall Down, it was the first Passion Conference that was recorded, and a guy named Sam Perry was the leader. Was the worship leader, and they led it. They sang it. I wasn't even leading it.
You weren't even leading.
I was just a little community group leader, and I wasn't even a part of the big stage thing. But they played that song, and that was the first time I'll never forget hearing someone else. Up to that point, I just played my songs, and as soon as the piano part started, I was like, "Oh, that sounds like the melody," because I just written the song, and sure enough, and it got on that record, and it just took off. And on that one,
Which is so funny because it wasn't even
me singing it. And then Michael W. Smith put out his worship record that was sold millions and millions of records. And the opening track is a song called Forever. I'd written that song, and those are some of my early college songs.
Wow.
And so when I say I was chasing my songs around,
Literally.
for a long point, people were like, "Oh, I love that song. Oh, I love that you sing Michael's songs." Like, yeah, thank you. I love that you sing. It's like, it was all that. It was really,
Wow.
So I kind of started from the songwriter perspective
Yeah.
of like, yeah, other people sing my songs, but it was a
Yeah.
while before I caught up with them, really, in a way.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but the church started singing them, and so people would find out, oh, Chris wrote that. You come and lead it. And I was doing these little youth weekends in Texas and playing these songs, but the songs really, the first songs that really took off, only thing I did was write them. I wouldn't record them or anything.
You know what's really interesting too is I remember when I played Texas the first time, like probably with Wirtz in like 2002 or 3. And one of the things that I always thought was so cool about what was happening there with you, the Shanes,
Yeah.
At that time, there was so much amazing worship music,
Yeah.
like innovative.
Yeah.
And I think now it's taken for granted that worship music is what it is.
Yes.
But at the time, I remember feeling like these people in Texas are sort of sitting on this gold mine of worship music because so many of you guys.
It's amazing.
It was incredible. Like Matt and I would go down there, and it felt like every time we'd go, somebody would give us a record.
Yeah.
And be like, dude, have you heard these guys or this guy or this girl? And it was always like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And I think that I love that part of the story too, because I always feel like music like that has a like something's happening for you to write something as somebody's writing something that they heard you, and then it just makes it better. And you guys at that time,
it was an incredible thing that was happening in Texas for some reason. Even now, the ripples are still massive from what was coming out in that moment. It was kind of like the UK thing when it was Delirious and Matt Redman and I could go down the list, Tim Hughes and all these people writing these other things are like the next British invasion. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
These worship songs. And Texas kind of had the same thing going. And it was really a collegiate thing that was happening.
Yes.
And it was amazing.
yeah, those you're right, because so much of that was college ministries.
It was all college ministries.
that were sort of on their own. Like I remember coming down there and be like, oh, is it like Crusade or RUF or Navigator? It's like, no, it's called Breakaway. And I was like, what's Breakaway? Like, well, it's just at A&M.
Yeah.
Or it was, what, and it was always so. I did a show with Shane and Shane at Texas Tech, and you would have thought Justin Timberlake was playing. Like, it was like, there are so many people here.
Right.
Like, so many people.
Right.
It was just insane.
Yeah.
Like, that was not happening anywhere else in the States. You couldn't be like, we're going to rock up and do a worship night and have 4,000 people.
No.
It's like, what?
Right.
So as this is all happening, as it's like exploding, like what's the family like? What are your parents like? Are they totally supportive from day one?
Yes. I remember that moment when I had normal parents that were like, my dad at first, he's like, son, I'll put this guitar in your hand, but it's a hobby, right? It's
Okay.
you remember, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
We need to get our degree and we need to have a real job. And, I had those talks.
Yeah.
But I remember when the music really started happening and more started happening by the time I was about a senior in college and thinking, I think I'm going to do this. I think it's just I don't have a band. I don't have anything, but I think I'm going to just see where follow this and travel. And basically it was me and I had a 4Runner and my guitar, and that was what I was doing. I had a really bad drum machine, one-man band kind of thing. And
Ed Sheeran way before Ed Sheeran.
oh gosh, people think Ed Sheeran is like so groundbreaking. Like, first of all, 7 Seal, and then and then
I have not once have I heard him use a helicopter sound.
no,
Yeah.
and then I was
found the right
I was
one.
doing way Ed Sheeran stuff before
Yeah.
before he was born.
Yeah.
But
Literally before he was born.
Yes,
Because
literally.
I think he's 13.
so I remember the moment my dad it was one late night, he got a call at the pharmacy. I was home for I think Christmas, and he's like, I got to go fill some prescriptions and deal some drugs. And he's like, you want to go down there with me? And I was like, yeah. It was in the middle of the night, somebody had called. And that's that small town pharmacy thing, by the way. That's a small town thing that it's a strange thing. Somebody needs something, you got to go down there, and you're kind of always on call, kind of like a doctor. And so I went down there with him, and he's talking, and I remember, man, it was an amazing moment. He just looked at me, and it's just me and him in the middle of the night in his pharmacy. He's like, I just want you to let you know that it's important for a son to have his dad's blessing. And
Wow.
And you have my blessing.
Holy
And
cow.
he said, I see the gift that God has given you, and it's evident that he's given you so many opportunities. And I want you to know from your dad, you just go for it. And you have my full blessing. And you never forget that.
Yeah.
Man.
You never forget that.
Yeah.
And
How did you feel when he said that?
it was powerful. He never said a lot of stuff like that before. And, just gave me a big hug. And it's amazing how much confidence that puts in you.
Yeah.
Instantly, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I can do this, And that's an incredible thing of what a father can do.
So look at this
Yeah.
segue that you're just lobbing up there like a champion, like a guy who's been in interviews before. so let's talk about the fam. So Lauren,
Well, I know you guys are rookies, so I'm trying to help you.
I can feel my hand being held right now.
you put the manna down. We'll follow it.
It didn't take me long to survey this room.
When I saw you weren't recording, I knew.
This is the Red Ibanez of podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Can we please start the podcast with a helicopter noise?
Oh, we definitely are. I'll take care of it. Don't worry.
Or every time Chris
Wind
talks,
goes-
I want a wind to blow right as he starts talking. So let's talk about your fam. So Lauren, you guys, how and when did y'all meet?
We met in when I moved to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta, I guess, in 2008.
Which was a big deal. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I remember because I don't know that we had maybe met briefly, but again, Texas was like locked and loaded with what y'all were doing.
It was my life. That's all I knew, and it was everything was just going crazy. And I'd been a part of a church that was exploding in Austin. I was living in Austin, and I was traveling a lot, and the records were taking off, the music's taking off, all that. And and I moved to Atlanta to help Louis plant this church. He said, I feel like the next step in what this is this church. And so gave 6-7 years of my life to that. And but the first week I moved to Atlanta, I playing tennis with a friend of mine. I loved to play tennis or something like that. And so I'm out there hitting with a friend of mine that I knew there. And he's like, oh man, I got this, there's this girl I'd love to set you up with here. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, her name's Lauren. He goes, man, I found out she's single right now. She does not stay single long. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I never forget that line. He goes,
she does not stay single.
He goes, all the guys, man, they want to date her. He goes, and so I know she's single right now. Can I?
We got a window.
He goes, we got a window. And I was like, and he said,
literally looking at his wife.
So double date. He's like, can we do a double date? And I was like, yeah, I'm traveling. I'll be back in a couple weeks. And so
He's like, that may be too long.
You need to cancel this tour.
I mean, now.
he said, I meant like tonight. No. And then we went out, and I wish I could say it was just like love it. It was just instant. And I wish she was here to tell the story, because she'd just bust me all day long. Because Lauren.
Oh, yeah.
She says I didn't look at her the whole night. She says, Chris, you did not talk to me. You looked at the other two, your friend and their date, and
you had these flashcards on the table.
Oh my gosh! And you would slowly
Just kept
rotate.
moving away from me. Hello, Lauren. Where are you from?
oh my gosh!
Just slow. Chris, you're moving away. Can you just?
I don't
move
know
this
what
way?
I don't know what I was doing, but I mean, I've always that's another podcast. I've always been horrible in the female department, but I did like her, and we started going out.
What was she doing there? Job was
Chick-fil-A. She was in the big marketing department. Atlanta's home of Chick-fil-A, and she was like she'd done really well. She was in the corporate world, in the Chick-fil-A world, and so that's when I met her. She was in that world, and then she had transitioned to work for her parents a little bit later to do these ministries for men and women. So that was our date, and then we started dating, and I just was just normal dude. Let's just talk about that. Uncommittal, all the issues that guys have.
Well, but not only that, but I mean, what you do and we do for a living, when you're busy, it's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a operation.
It's an operation,
and you are spoken for. Your time is spoken for.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a massive part of it. But she figured out quick. She's like, "Hey, this isn't going anywhere. You're just like." You don't seem like you're really pursuing this. It just kind of works when you're at home, but it's not like something that you're. And she just straight up, I think it was like 6 months in. 6 months, by the way, that's a whole nother podcast, but that was pretty long for me. I mean, that was like a record title.
Yeah.
That record
Your parents were like, this may work.
record title. He's gone out 3 times. This
Oh my God, over 6 months.
Yeah. And she just stopped that. She's like, it's not going to work. And man, did I ever just like.
So she broke up with you.
She broke up with me.
Wow,
and
that'll get your attention.
Yeah,
no
and
kidding.
I remember telling her, we were talking about this at lunch today. I remember telling her, because she always brings it up, because her family, they do this ministry for men and for women. They talk about the whole pursuing the man and woman pursuing each other. I mean, how would you like to marry into a family that's what they talk
That's
about?
what they do for a living.
Relationship. Yeah, it's marriage retreats, and so she's in that world, and they show movie clips from like The Notebook and from like Braveheart, and these great moments that are inspiring that the movies bring out and say, this is what this is speaking to in the man, and I remember telling her when she broke up with me, and she's like, I remember looking at her, I said, you know what? You've watched one too many movies.
No.
You're doubling down.
You've watched one too many movies, and you think it's all about a movie. And she always talks about that. And I was such a jerk. But thankfully, in just the craziest of ways, God brought that back together. God brought us back together.
How long after that?
It was probably another 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It was a while, because I was so prideful. I was like so prideful. And I was like, I'm going to show her. I'm going to go date every girl I can find, and I'll make sure that somehow she knows about it, And like, so I just went on this rampage of like, just not to date different girls and that kind of thing. And,
Took him to Chick-fil-A every time.
every
Corporate.
time. Yeah, just go
Not even
by.
to eat.
They're like,
Just walk in the
we don't
building.
have food here. These are the corporate offices.
It was
What are you
awful.
doing?
It was awful. But all that, in all that, it was reminding me. It was reminding me, man, there's something about her. It was always that thing. And I'd realized what I'd had. It was that moment where it takes for a lot of guys. You realize, man, I realized what I had, and I'd lost that. And, and I remember saying a lot of times, gosh, I would love to get her back. And so I just got all the guts up, and I'd reached out to her several times. Nothing. I didn't hear nothing back. So one day I just called her, and not thinking that she was going to answer the phone. And she answered, and I'm like, uh-oh. And so I was like, hey, just calling you. And, I've just had a lot of time, obviously a lot of time, about 6-7 months to think about this.
Yeah.
And, I realized there's a lot of things I'd like to say to you, and I'd love to talk to you about it. And can I come by and just share? I just want to talk to you. And she goes, the phone's fine.
She has got some boundaries.
She goes, phone's fine. I was like, okay. And so I just said it all on the phone. And she's like, that's really nice, but I'm over you.
Holy cow.
And she said, you broke my heart, and now I'm with somebody else, and I'm over you. But I wasn't taking it. I was going back in. I was like, yeah. And she goes, did you hear me? I said, I'm over you. And she told me 4 times. And I was like, I've heard that enough. I get it. That was it. And I thought we kind of hung up, and I thought that was it. And for some reason, I wanted to send her a text. I still try to throw lifelines out every once in a while. How we are.
Oh, yeah, man.
Everything you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, it was just a little bit later, and I sent her a text. It was, I think, weeks or months later, maybe a couple months later. And the text was, her family's ministry was called Adventures of the Heart. That's what they do. And her dad takes men out on these crazy, wild men adventures, and they talk about heart stuff. And it's called Adventures of the Heart. And I knew she was working there. And I sent a text in a minute, and exactly how it said it. I said, hey, hope everything is going well with, and I put in quotes, Adventures of the Heart. And just thinking about you. I get a text immediately back. She has not responded to me any text I've ever sent. Immediately back, she goes, how'd you know? Basically, she goes, how'd you know? You must have quite an entourage. And I was like, I thought maybe she meant that for somebody else. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she goes, oh, well, me and my boyfriend broke up just yesterday, and I thought your little Adventures of the Heart thing was being a jerk.
Oh, my gosh.
How are you with your Adventures of the Heart? That was my text. She had just broken up with her boyfriend.
And she's like, you have got intel. Some good intel.
Got an entourage, and you are a jerk, basically. And I was like, I have honestly no idea this. Inside you're just like, yes. You're like,
game on. Game on.
We're in.
Men back on the field, please. Everybody back on the field.
And so I knew at that moment, though, that, okay, that was a moment of like, all right, if this was to work, if I step back in, there's no dating at this point.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, let's just date and see if it works out again.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're going back in, this is.
And you were ready.
I was ready.
Yeah.
And I was ready. So I knew I'm walking in, and it's all on the line. It's all there from the start. And so, yeah, we got back together, met in person, and I remember we shut the restaurant down. It was one of those movie moments where literally the manager came and said, look, I don't know if you've noticed this, but
everybody's gone.
There's no employees here.
Oh my gosh.
He goes, I'm locking the door. And he said, I need you guys to leave. It was just that, this is the moment,
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was that. And so then we got engaged quickly after that, because it's like we knew.
Yeah.
And so like, there's no more dating. We got engaged really quickly and got married. And then 6 weeks into marriage,
I forgot about that.
Lauren's like, I think I might need to go to the pharmacy, go to the pharmacy and get one of those tests. Get one of those tests.
And grab a guitar while we're there.
And
you're like, grab me some baseball cards.
Also, is there any upper deck?
Can you get Ken Griffey's Rookie? And so 6 weeks in, we found out. She said it would be just amazing if we could have 1 year without having kids. I got married later in life. I was 38, and she goes, but it'd be great to have at least a year. I knew a family should start soon, but we didn't know that soon. So before our first year of anniversary, we had a child. Before we even had our first year anniversary.
Oh my gosh!
And so it was a lot. So for me, it was a lot, because I'm single for so long.
That is a huge change.
Marriage is a huge change, right? And then having a child is even massive more change. And all in a year, it's just been crazy.
So were you guys on the same page with that? Or was she like, no, I would like to have a year or two?
No,
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'd be like, that'd be great. It'd be nice to have kind of a honeymoon year.
Yeah.
Just like, but no. So she's 6 weeks in. She's sick, and she was sick her entire pregnancy, a horrible pregnancy. So our first year of marriage, she talked about she's not just on the couch throwing up all the time, and like you're like, all right, now we're in real life. Life
here we go.
Life which switched forever. Yeah. And it's been the greatest gift that's ever happened to me. It was a thing that I needed to wake myself up to, just really growing up in so many ways. Gosh, I mean, that's nothing like marriage to show you yourself, and just what an absolute narcissist and selfish, person you are, And John
But
Eldridge.
if marriage doesn't quite do it, then having kids will do it.
Yes.
That's going to
For
nail
sure.
the coffin.
And
right
John Eldridge says marriage is God's divine conspiracy for your transformation. And if that ever is the truth, it is like this thing that really transforms you. And it has transformed my life.
Yeah.
So with the both of y'all, and now with both the girls, what are y'all like as a couple? Like, what is the dynamic? You know what I mean? How does that work with the girls,
In
with
what
y'all
way?
as a family? Like, what roles y'all just kind of naturally, like I know Lauren well, and I mean, she's top of the line. Like, you've done well. She is such an amazing woman and such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
How do y'all fit? Like, what are the ways that you go, man, we are great with this? Who are you in that, you know what I mean, in that relationship? Like, what roles you kind of play?
It's pretty traditional in the way that she's very committed to being a mom, which it's the most thankless place there probably is position in the world. But she doesn't feel, I mean, she could do a lot of things. She's pulled in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that people want her to do. She's gifted in so many ways. She had a couple different careers before me, and she has really said, I want to be fully there. So it is me in the kind of the provider role in a financial way. So I feel I play that role, and she's with them all the time. And I love that. I saw something on that if you're a stay-at-home mom, they calculated the hours, and it was on USA Today, and they said you work 3.5 full-time jobs a week, 3.5 in hours. It's like compared to full-time job.
Oh yeah,
it's 3.5. It's like you have 3.5 jobs a week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I see that. So thank God for her, and thank God for moms who have that commitment. I know everybody can't, but those who do, and it's thankless, and so it's amazing. But so she does that, with the training and the discipline of the kids. That's very much shared. We have isn't it amazing how we have completely different roles? Like, she's someone who is just like, she's so caring and like speaks into them like in an amazing way into the kids. She is like, everything is so for her is so much teaching moments. For me, it's like very few words. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, no, and let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let's sit down
Yeah.
and talk about
Yeah.
why this. I'm like, no. Get in your room.
Here's a lesson. Don't do that again.
Here's your lesson. But we have these different, I think, roles we're both very, very engaged from a parenting standpoint. And I feel like we really take pretty equal in everything except, time. Obviously she's with them a lot more than me because of what I do, but I take very seriously, like, any time that I can be home, like when I'm looking at my schedule and all that, it is all about at this moment being there and being present. And so I think our roles are a bit traditional in that sense, but there's something special about that, the dad and daughter thing that is like, I think I watch the roles happen, and there's Lauren, the mom, and the girls, they so much are more. They pick at each other a lot more. They're just like the girls, they just know how to get onto each other.
Oh yeah.
And for me, it just drives Lauren crazy, because for me, it's just they're hugging on my legs all the time. She's like, they never hug on my legs.
Yeah.
And he's like, that whole dad-daughter thing is just the most amazing things. I always, just growing up with brothers, I always thought I'll have boys, and that's what I know. And girls, I don't know this world. And and it's all girls, and it's just me. But it's incredible. I'm so secretly, outwardly, like publicly, I might say, oh yeah, it'd be amazing to have a boy. And inwardly, I'm like, thank God. I just love my
Dude,
girls.
I am the same way.
I'm
like, I can raise my hand. Amen to everything you just said.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask you, so you were 38 when you guys had your first
married and child.
Married
same
and child.
year.
A lot of change that year. So you've been writing songs for years, touring for years. I know for me, when I became a dad, all these phrases that I had heard, sung, read, growing up in the church about this, relationship with my Heavenly Father, that when I became a dad got like infused with meaning. All this heavy, heavy meaning, because I have this like tangible relationship now with these two girls that I am their dad. So for you, especially as a songwriter who is writing about that that first relationship, now you actually have the second relationship. What was that transition like for you?
Man,
Did it affect the way you
it
approach
just
songs?
unlocked a part of me in my heart that I did not know was there. I remember when Ashley, my firstborn, when she was born, we were in a hospital, but we had a kind of doula midwife as well. So we had that and then the normal hospital world of, having a child.
Yeah.
But we had the midwife there to walk with Lauren through the thing because she just wanted to have the baby naturally, all that kind of stuff. So all that's happening. When we have the baby, the midwife no longer is with Lauren. She is with me over in the corner trying to make sure I am not completely she forgets Lauren. Lauren's fine. Lauren's having the baby. Lauren's fine. Me, I am in the corner on the floor. And she's I remember her hand on my back. It's going to be okay. You're going to be all right.
Oh my God. Meanwhile, Lauren is having a human.
And she's with me because I am so overwhelmed. I had no idea. People would tell me all the time. They would say this is amazing. They'd be, man, the greatest day of my life is when I had my child. The greatest day of my life. And I'd always think, man, inside I'd be like, you guys need to get a life. You need to get out more, do things. That's what I would always say. Inside, I would always say, you guys got to get.
There's a lot of great stuff out here.
There's a lot of great stuff in the world. Are you serious? That's the best. And that's what I would think, man. And then you cannot, no matter how many people say it, until it happens.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot know. You cannot know.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I was so overwhelmed, unlocked a part of me, and what that I did not know was there, this love. And like you said, it infused everything of that, the Father to God, the Father to his children, what the love that a father has, the care, the protection, all those things just rise up in you right as the dad. Immediately you're like, I will give my life for this little alien looking baby right now. I would do anything. There's nothing. And then this hit me in the most profound way. And I thought, it just hit me. I was like, this is the one thing in life I can't stop doing.
Wow.
I can stop everything in my life. I can stop being married. I would never, God forbid that ever happen. But people can stop being married all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I can stop music. I can stop something. I will never stop being her dad. Even if I am a bum. Even if I just like try to run away.
Yeah.
I'm her dad.
Yeah.
Golly Moses.
And that is forever. And that is massive. And I was like, what a responsibility. What an amazing. It wasn't like, oh gosh, it was like, that is the most amazing thing. That what is this person for all time? I'm her dad, and I'll never stop being that.
It is at church. Our pastor just started a new sermon series on the Lord's Prayer, and he said something this week that like I started crying so hard that Annie thought something's wrong with me. And it was this, and I thought this was so beautiful how he illustrated this. He was talking, so he's just going really slowly through it. And so the first thing he's talking about is our Heavenly Father. And he talked about the power, the access we have to God because he's our Father, right? And, I was like, that's great. But he talked about, and I thought this was really interesting because at first, sometimes these things, the sports metaphors and stories, you can get a little like, oh, here we go, But he said, so when Tom Brady won the last Super Bowl, whatever that was, 5 that he won, Chad, the pastor, said, I thought it was so fascinating because you're watching this man. This is they came back and won the game. It was just this massive moment. Yeah. He said, but he gets through what any man, and I think women, you get it. You're like, that's it. You've done the thing, right? Like, no, having a child. No, that is the best. You're on the stage. Everybody's like, you're the MVP. You brought your team back you're the best at this. And it's your 5th one. And he said, I thought it was so fascinating because when he comes down and his little girl is right there, his countenance just lights up. And it's like he had just walked, he'd just been given the trophy. And he said, and this just rocked me. He said, do you know how that girl got on the field? Father. That's how she got on the field. And she has access because of that one word. And I thought, God, that is profound to think that we have access because of one word.
One word.
Isn't that amazing?
One word.
And I thought that was such a beautiful example of that. Like that she has access to the most important person in that whole arena because of that one word. She just has to say, Dad. Yeah, let her through. Isn't that great?
And how revolutionary. It's back to the Lord's Prayer. I think about when the disciples come up and say, when his friends, we say disciples like but his friends come and say, you seem to know how to pray. Teach us. Will you teach us how to pray? Isn't that amazing? He's the first thing he says, yes, I'll teach you. When you say this, our Father. And for us, we've just heard it so much. But that had to be the most revolutionary
Oh, man.
thing.
Yeah.
They must have been thinking, you mean this God, that name, Father, that is so that's like the most personally, I think about that. And all the names for God out there, right? There's Creator, Maker, Sustainer, Holy, Jehovah, Yahweh. You go to the list of incredible names of God. But the most powerful to me and the most beautiful is Father, because that is like, that means there's a relationship there that is so personal and intimate. I think about my relationship with my daughters, and that's how God would see us too. That's just revolutionary to the world. And I think if people got a hold of that, if really people understood that that's the way he sees you and how he sees you, you'd be busting the roof off the churches for people.
Yeah.
I want to worship that God. I want to be a part of that. And that's why when that song Good Father came along, I think that's why that song is like a once in a generation kind of song, right? That rises above the noise because it connects people with God as a father, that reconnects them to that. There's a lot of labels. The world puts a lot of labels on people. That's what we do. That's what we can do that better than anything. You're single, you're divorced, you're successful, you're an addict, you're this, you're a loser. Oh, you're a winner. Wow, you're amazing. You're a Republican. No, you're a Democrat. It's labels, labels, labels. And what I've been trying to say to people in my concerts is God has a label on you as well. And he says, you're my son and you're my daughter. That's how he sees you. He's a father. And
to your point, he can never be anything else. Isn't that amazing? To your point.
Yeah,
like
he's not going to quit. You don't stop being a father. You don't stop. You can't stop it. You can stop everything else. But you cannot stop being a dad.
Isn't that encouraging?
Yes, that's amazing, man.
He doesn't quit us.
Right.
We may quit him, but he doesn't quit us.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions. Knowing the weight of what a father is, like how important dads are. When you think about the girls, what are things that you find yourself, like what are the big things to you? Like, you know what I mean? When you sort of think about them, even in this, as they're so young, what are ways either that you really were impacted and you think this is something I want to pass on, or what do you find yourself thinking a lot about, like with that?
The first thing that comes to mind, the number one is I want them to be grateful people, grateful. I want them to be grateful kids. And what I mean that to have a grateful spirit, and a grateful spirit is, it just changes the game. When you walk around and you realize and you're grateful for things and you're not entitled to things, and all that has gone away, and you're grateful for what comes, you're grateful for what doesn't come. All those things. If I can instill that in my girls to be just grateful of what God has given them, of what they've been given, that's one thing I think. One of the things that I see for them, obviously, is I pray for them all the time to follow the Lord and to take that faith. I always pray for that moment when it's not just me and Lauren what are speaking into them, but it's when they take it as their own and they really say, I'm going to follow. And I pray they take the baton from me and Lauren and take it further than we could ever dream. You know, for me, it's weird because like I think they'll look and go, my dad did this professionally. He was talked about God for a living. That could kind of get weird, right? And that's a big deal for me because it's like, you know, I can't be two things. I can't be one thing on the stage talking to all these people about how amazing God is and be, you know, something else with my kids. That's a real accountability in my face because they're the ones who really see, and they would know if I was a fraud so fast.
Right.
And so that's always in front of me. It's like I'm always carrying that. It's like, God, I don't want to be fake. I want to be real. So that's a big deal for me. But I talk about that a lot with Lauren. I talk about just putting that in our girls, being really grateful. And when you're around people that are that, man, they're just beautiful people to be around and have a generous spirit. I mean, when you're grateful, you have a lot of things comes from that. You have a real generous spirit and you just want to give, and you just want to give to people because you're so grateful for what's been given to you. That's what comes to top of mind.
Yeah. I love that. I think too, it's funny because it follows, we've talked about this a lot. I think it follows my story too with my career. I love hearing that about you. I know we've talked about this, John, just like, I really do feel like I was given a career. I wasn't that kid that grew up like going, I'm going to be the dude with the guitar doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so by the grace of God, when I think about what I do, I really feel like it was given to me. On my darkest days, yes, I can get entitled. I can get insecure. I can feel like I hustle. But any moments of clarity, it is a very, very, I mean, and like you said, I mean, coming from, none of us came from music family. I mean, your dad obviously played, but, you know, none of us came from music families and music cities that were like, you know, so for me, it's all found, you know, it's just mailbox money as far as this gift of a career.
Yeah.
And so I think helps me so much. I love hearing you say that because I think those experiences help inform how I want my children to feel too, and to be recipients of things, and to be open and grateful for what's given to them. Because thankfully, when I think about my career, that's one of my favorite things about it, is that I can't say I did anything. I mean, I've worked hard and I've tried to be a good craft, but I love that. And that's something I want my kids to see, is that I wasn't like, now you look I busted my rear. And this, but like, no, like God is good and he is a provider and he has provided for me. He will provide for you, and it causes gratitude. And so I'm just thankful. I'm thankful I get to do this. I'm thankful. Attitude of gratitude. Yeah. You're welcome.
And, I was waiting for that. Yeah.
But I think I love hearing that about your story too, because I think you can't not operate out of that when you look back and go, this was not my plan. Do you know what I mean? Like,
are you crazy? Yeah, there's no way you could even you can't write this stuff up.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah. Back to what you said with that, a grateful spirit, right? It's not conducive on how your finances are right now. If you have a grateful spirit, it is, I mean, some of the most grateful people I've met, as you know, are some of the people who have the least.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And the people who have so much and are just an absolute drag to be around.
Yeah.
And it's just awful to be in their presence, and they have so much. Yeah. That's why I'm like, gosh, I just want my girls to carry this grateful spirit of like, and that just so contagious to people.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you do, like you're saying, is you're kind of in that perfect balance of, like, obviously you've been insanely successful, and God has taken your music all over the world 1,000 times over. But any given night, you get up on stage and to sing the words that you're singing, to write the words that you're writing, 23 hours of the day when you're not on stage has got to look, has got to reflect that.
Yeah.
So it sort of sharpens.
Yep.
Your own, whatever that phrase is, sharpens your own knife. What?
I like that.
You got to sharpen your own knife. You know what I mean?
You know what I mean, guys?
You know what I mean?
Sounds like something like one of my granddads.
When it comes down to it.
What is it? Well, son, I'm going to tell you. Ain't nobody else going to sharpen that knife. Thanks, Granny. I think so.
What's my knife?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, could you play this out for
Why
me?
would I sharpen your knife?
I'm taking this a lot of ways.
Why
I
do we
bet
both
you
have
don't
knives right now? What are we doing?
What is happening? What do you want your kids to say at your funeral? Like, what is the thing that I know?
Goodness gracious. What comes to my heart immediately is that I knew that he loved me no matter what happens, no matter whatever decision I made. I know my dad was always right there, and I could always come home no matter how far or whatever life takes me. I know I could always come home. My dad was there, and my dad had passion for people to know Jesus, to know the Lord. And my dad loved my mom. I think that would be amazing.
I love that.
I think that would be like, if you can do those.
Yeah.
If you can do that, what else?
Win. Absolutely.
What else is there?
Yeah, I love that.
I love that we have these consistent questions at the end that we ask. That so far is such a consistent, every dad wants their kids to just know one thing, that I love you. None of this other stuff matters.
It doesn't.
None of it matters.
I'm going to add a question just real quick. I can't smile. I'm sorry. For all the Seventh Seal fans out there.
Yeah.
Just real quick. New music. I mean, is that... is that...
Because we've kind of riled up the bass.
I feel like... is that... What are we talking? All you wonderful, beautiful, kind people. Thank you so much for listening to the episode.
If you have a second, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and write a review.
Unless it's bad.
Because that stuff really does matter.
And please follow us on socials. You can find us everywhere at Dadville Podcast.
Also, you can follow us each at Dave Barnes Music and at Jon McLaughlin to find out more about our music.
Thanks for listening.
Dadville.